Alrighty, welcome back you all to District E's virtual summer experience. Um, we are coming to you now with the amazing Chef D. I hope you guys were able to tune into our earlier session with Chef Caitlin, where we made these very delicious lemon tarts. I was there as well, hosting as well. But now we're gonna go ahead and kick it over to Chef D, making a delicious probably a lunch or a dinner for you as nice
Yes.
little meal for you. So, Chef D, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to you. How you doing today?
I am doing great, and I hope everybody else is doing well too. So, granted, this is a hot day and usually not one to be making baked macaroni and cheese, but since I got a request to make this dish from our Facebook Live for District E, I figured I would oblige this person and we're going to make baked macaroni and cheese. So we're just going to get started. I will post the recipe for this on my social media sites, and I also gave it to Zion, so I'm sure he'll put it on the YouTube once we're all finished. But we're going to start with one box of dried elbow macaroni. I already have my water boiling. I did it ahead of time. So normally when you're going to make pasta, you get your water boiling, you're going to add salt, and you want that water to taste salty like the sea. Jenny, can you get that for me, please? That's Renell. He's trying to get in. I'm sorry. You would do it salty like the sea, but we're actually not going to make it that salty because we're making baked macaroni and cheese is naturally salty. So we don't want to add too much salt to really make it overly salty. So I did add about maybe a half a tablespoon or 2 teaspoons of salt to get this started. So we're going to pour it and make sure your water's boiling. And once it goes in, you're going to do a light little mix just to make sure none of them get stuck together. Because it's really important that we have individual pieces of macaroni and not one big blob. So however your box of macaroni tells you how to cook it, you want to do that the same, but just minus maybe about a minute and a half. Because when we bake it, we don't want it to be over baked and to make them like gooey. So if you've ever had macaroni and cheese that felt like it's already been chewed or they already put it in the blender, that's because they overcooked it and then you had to bake it. So we want to cook it closest to al dente, which is an Italian term that means to the tooth, so that you can taste it. They still have a little bit of bite to them. It's going to make the macaroni so much better. So with these, my package instructions tell me to cook this for 9 to 11 minutes. So we're going to err on the 8-minute time frame with getting that done. So while that's boiling, we are going to work on our bechamel sauce, which is really just a white cream sauce that we're going to use for the macaroni and cheese. So I prefer to use a cream sauce in my macaroni to make sure that they're not overly dry. I love really creamy and cheesy macaroni, so that's what we're gonna do today. So first I'm gonna show you a little bit of the ingredients that I have, the other things that we need. So we have a half a cup of unsalted butter. I have a half a cup of all-purpose flour, 1.5 cups of whole milk, and 2.5 cups of heavy cream. And if you wanted to, you can combine them together and just use heavy cream. Like it doesn't have to be half and half or whole milk. You could actually use heavy whipping cream for all of it. The other thing we have is 4 cups of grated cheddar cheese. So this one's cheddar and Monterey Jack mixed together. I love Monterey Jack cheese. I think it's really smooth, so I like it in my macaroni and cheese. And then we also have this little nifty ingredient. So this is 2 cups of grated Gruyere cheese. Gruyere cheese is phenomenal. It really has this smoky taste to it, and it's really, really creamy. Not that salty, which we're trying to avoid it being really salty, but it's delicious. So we need to start with the Gruyere. So normally you would take it and grate your cheese. So 1 second. And This is kind of what Gruyere looks like. So depending on where you buy it, they may have a skin on the outside that you'll have to remove. It'll be a paper skin, but they're all going to be this color. And you just get your regular old-fashioned grater and get at it. So this is just me just doing a light grade to show you pretty much how to grade cheese, which I would hope you already know how to do. So they come out beautiful, beautiful shreds. And put that in our bowl. All right, so now we're gonna start to actually make our sauce. I'm gonna turn on our heat, and we're gonna do a medium to high heat. So first we're gonna go ahead and add in our butter. So the first thing we're gonna do is make a blonde roux. So you guys are from New Orleans, most of you, so you're familiar with what a roux is. It's really just oil or fat and flour. So we're gonna make a roux that's just not going to be brown in any way. It's going to stay white, but we want to make sure that we do it low enough that it actually cooks the flour, so you won't get that raw flour taste in your macaroni and cheese. Now, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. Perfect. So once you get your butter in and get most of it melted, the next thing we're going to add in is the flour. So while my butter is getting all melted, I'm going to do a quick stir again on my macaroni to make sure that they're still nice and loose. And if you feel like you're not going to remember how long you've cooked them, definitely set a timer because you don't want to overdo it. Okay, so now our butter is ready. We're going to add in our flour, and I'm going to whisk this in. And it's really important to really get it all in and keep it moving because we don't want this to be brown in any way. Looks really good. So if you can see it, it looks really, really creamy. It smells really, really good. But of course, it's just butter and flour. So there's so many dishes that start off with just butter and flour, including some of my favorite desserts. So we're going to cook this for about a minute. So we're probably closer to 30 seconds in. So we'll go for another 30 seconds. And we kind of want this to look like wet sand. So it's kind of like, it looks wet on the top, but then it's still grainy on the bottom. That's the look we're going for. Give it another couple of mixes. You can see it's really bubbly inside. It's really starting to cook that flour down, so we won't have that raw flour taste. Definitely getting that wet sand look. So right after this, the next thing that we're going to add in is our dairy. So we're going to add in the milk. There we go. It's looking perfect. So what you'll notice once you start to mix it, it kind of looks broken, like into several little pieces. That's how you know you're going in the right direction. All right, so I'm going to start to add our milk, and it is going to bubble slightly. We're definitely going to whisk this really well because we want to make sure that the flour and the milk mix together really well. We don't want to have any chunks of our roux that are left out. So once I have this all in, I'm going to turn it up just a little bit because I want it to almost go to a boil. So we're just mixing it to make sure that it's all combined and really smooth. but I don't see any chunks of flour that hasn't gotten mixed in from our roux. So while I'm waiting for that to come up, I'm going to stir our macaroni again. So I'm stirring it to test to see the doneness of it and also to make sure that it's not sticking together. You can see it's really, really close. So it'll start to get this translucent look when it's getting closer to done. So the next thing we'll do is add in half of our cheese. So we're not going to add in all the cheese. We need to save some for our top. All right, so you can see it's starting to get a nice little bubble boil going. You want to keep that going. So we want it to really kind of come to a boil. It'll start to thicken up. Then we'll add in our cheese and we'll finish that with the salt and white pepper. So I prefer to use white pepper because it still gives you that pepper flavor without having all the little black specks inside of it. All right, so if you can take a look, it's really starting to thicken up. So it's not as splashy as it was before. Still splashing around, but you can see that it's really, really turning into a sauce at this point. It's not just liquid milk anymore. So normally we want this sauce to get as thick as what we called nappe, which means that when I stick the spoon in there and I use the back of my finger to wipe it, it stays clean. It doesn't go back together. So that's very perfect. So we're going to go ahead and add in half of our cheese and get that mixed. Of course, I'm going to turn this back down to low. That's awesome. And then I'm going to add in half of our Gruyere. Oh, I wish you could smell this. You will not be disappointed with the smell. So now that I've done most of my mixing, I'm going to actually switch to a spatula so that I can really, really move around the cheese and get it in nicely. Because I don't want any of it to stick to the bottom of my pan. We're just going to keep mixing this until it's all, look at that, so it's all nice and smooth until all of our cheese is melted. So now I'm going to add in our salt and pepper. I'm going to keep mixing, and I'm pretty sure that my macaroni should be done. So the easiest macaroni test to do is take out a few, run them into cold water, and just bite them, eat them. See what they taste like. If they feel like they're really not done enough, then definitely cook them more. If you feel like they are overdone, then you have to be very careful. So right now, let's see if I can get another one. So if you look at them right now, they're kind of really sticky. But even if I squeeze them, they kind of break, but then kind of don't. They are very close. So we probably need a good, maybe 1 more minute for them to boil, and then we'll take them out. So I'm going to set up my pan because I'm not going to bake a whole thing. We're going to bake a little dish so that you guys can see the end result. Because if I made all of this 1 pound, it would take close to 25 to 30 minutes for it to get done. So we're going to do it in a small batch just so I can get it finished. Do you guys have any questions right now? Or? Any
Yeah.
questions?
uh,
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
in the chat, one of the questions we have for you is, let's see if I can word this correctly.
Okay.
Basically, kind of asking you, you mentioned various cheeses that you're using with this macaroni. Do you have
Yes.
a kind of person that likes cheeses, so to speak? Like you have a preference of this cheese, this dish, or, something like
I
that.
love cheese, and the cheeses that I'm using, I use these because for me, they give me the best outcome. They
Uh,
give me the creamiest, cheesiest, butteriest
mm,
macaroni and cheese, which I think if you're eating baked macaroni, that's why you're eating it, right? So you could have this nice, like, cheesy
hmm.
bite that's delicious.
Okay. And so you are very, how you would say, kind of well knowing of the many cheeses that basically
Well, I know a few cheeses. I do not know all the cheeses. There are millions of cheese in the world, and even within the variety, there's still thousands of different varieties of the same cheese. But I will say, if you're going to be really particular about cheese,
yeah.
try to get a local, try to stay local. There's always people in your area that actually make cheese.
Mm,
I feel like they don't have as many processes, and
yeah.
so you won't have all the enzymes. Well, you'll have a few, but you won't have all the additional things in cheese that would, you need it to hold it so that it won't mold before it gets to market. You won't get that with fresh cheese, and fresh cheeses are smoother, sometimes a little bit more creamy, and if you know a cheesemonger or a person that makes cheese, they can even make cheese that you like. They can make something specifically just for you, which is amazing. Okay, so this cheese sauce is done. I've turned it off. Check our macaroni and see how they're doing. They are very close. So once we get those drained, I'm just going to add a few to our pan, and I'll show you how we're going to layer it into 2 layers, making sure we have more cheese in the middle and on top, and then we're going to put it into the oven. Okay, so I'm going to now drain our macaroni. I can turn that off. It's definitely going to a rolling boil. So in a lot of cases, I know people like to rinse their pasta, but I would say in this particular fashion, not to. It's not necessary. Because the reason why is because we want to keep it a little bit starchy to kind of help everything get mixed together. Hey, that fell. So that was hot and splattered. So I'm just going to put a little bit of macaroni in our bowl to get it mixed with our cheese. Okay, so that's where we are. You can see that it is piping hot, which helps. If you do this and you keep everything hot, it'll make it cook faster in the oven. If you rinse your macaroni and wait until they're cool and then try to add the sauce and then add the cheese, you're going to have to wait until all those temperatures come back together or come back up when it's in the oven. But this will make it go a lot quicker. So my phone's ringing. There we go. I'm just going to add 2 spoonfuls. We're going to mix it in. It's going to mix in really, really nicely. So I will say you can make this ahead of time, up to at least 3 or 4 days. You could definitely keep it in the refrigerator. I would not freeze it. It does not freeze well. Well, it does freeze well. It will not thaw well. So when it thaws, it will definitely break apart and become very watery, and then you'll have a mess. But you can definitely make it ahead of time. I will say if you do make it ahead of time, like you want to make it 2 or 3 days ahead of time, make your sauce a little bit more liquidy. Don't make it as thick so that once you kind of mix everything together, it being in the process of the refrigerator, that starch from the macaroni, it's really going to make it thicker. So we're going to go ahead and add one layer of macaroni into the bottom of our dish. And depending on what kind of dish you use, you can spray this with pan spray, or you can put butter in it. And we're going to go ahead and put in some of our fantastic cheese. I like to keep the cheeses separate. In the event you find that it's too much cheese or you want to do something else with it, you don't have to try to separate it. So we're going to add more macaroni to the top of this. We're going to spread it out. And then we're going to add a little bit more cheese to the top because we want it to be really cheesy. We have the oven on. I have it preset at 375 degrees. Just want to make sure it's nice and hot when we put our macaroni in. My favorite. And as you can tell, yes, I do like very, very cheesy macaroni and cheese. Like cheese would not be one of the ingredients if it wasn't supposed to be a lot. All right, so I have that in. I'm going to actually put it on a baking dish. In the event it runs over, you don't want to have it spill in your oven. So I just have a cookie sheet. I'm going to place in the middle. We're going to put this in the oven. Okay, so we have it all in the oven. It's going to take about 15 minutes for it to actually cook. You want to cook that, bake that macaroni and cheese until it's nice and golden brown and bubbly. And that's it. Definitely you want to have a small rest period. You do not want to serve anyone like piping hot macaroni and cheese directly out of the oven. They will hate you forever, as you will ruin their taste buds forever. But after that, it's done. So does anybody have any questions?
First of all, thank you again, Chef D, for that amazing dish with those various cheeses. Um, and we do have another question for you. This question actually kind of relates to what we were talking about earlier, kind of, you know,
Okay.
that work that goes into getting these specific dishes completed. And so
Yes.
it kind of relates to you, and it's asking that they mentioned when you were stirring and constantly stirring and stirring, is that very needed? And will the outcome kind of affect if you don't stir as much as you do?
Yes. It's definitely needed. And what would happen if you don't continue to stir is that you'll have burn spots. So you could get a burn spot maybe in the back, on the side. So when you actually hit those, if you haven't touched it in a while, then you'll get these speckles in your cheese sauce, right? So then you'll have these little brown spots.
Mm,
If you use the Gruyere cheese, you'll have a few of the brown spots because the rind itself is brown,
yeah.
and I don't take it off. I love the feel, the waxiness of it. I love how it tastes, so I don't remove it. So in that instance, I will have some. But if you do not stir your
Hmm.
roux, or you do not stir your cream sauce, your cheese, your bechamel sauce, you will definitely get burn spots, and it would definitely look like black pepper, because it will be burnt in so many different areas, and you will not be able to get it out. Once it's in there, it's in there. So I would definitely say if you have any issues, try to do them in step one, right? If you burn your roux, just make a new one because the cheese is so expensive. You don't want to add your cheese to a burnt roux. Roux is just butter and flour. That's really simple ingredients. It only was a half a stick of butter and a half a cup of flour. So I would definitely waste the money on that to redo it than to ruin my cheese sauce.
completely understandable. And basically, they're also wanting to know kind of is that painful constantly during all that the long amounts, long
Of
time.
stirring. um, Painful a little. I mean, you get used to it. Definitely, you'll realize that even though you see me stirring, I'm stirring from my shoulder. Um, Not as much from the elbow as you think, but you have to just build up a tolerance to be able to tolerate this much stirring. Um, but the more you practice, the
Yeah.
better you'll get. And I wanted to mention that if you do allow something in your sauce to burn, it's going to taste burnt. You will not be able to get that burn taste out.
Mhm.
And everyone that ate it would definitely know that you burned it.
Oh,
So I will say that with the cheese sauce, like right now, I only did a small container of the whole thing. This can be saved, but only for a couple of days. And what you would do is take it, put it in a container, let it definitely cool down before you refrigerate it. Now, when you want to re-melt this because it's really going to get solidified, you could do that with more half and half or heavy cream to kind of add it to your pot, let it boil, and then add your sauce in and just kind of go through that same mixing process to get it all melted. You will see that it may start to separate, as you can see here. That's just the fat coming out of the cheese itself.
mhm.
But once you add more milk to it, it will stir itself out. And if you find that it's not stirring itself out, that means you have too much fat. And in that instance, you would add a little bit of water, and the water will help bring it back together. So don't worry if it looks broken, as we would normally call your sauce may look broken. It's fine. You can add some water, or you may be able to add more milk or dairy to get it back to the normal creamy consistency.
Well, again, thank you so much, Jeff, for your time,
You are welcome.
skills, and so much more. Um, Again, is there anything you'd like to say to everyone? Your session is unfortunately up.
Yes. I will definitely make sure I post the results of our baked mac and cheese on my on my social media, Instagram and Facebook, and I will also send them to Zion so he can put them up as well, so you guys can see what the result is when it's done. And I guarantee you will not be disappointed. If you make this, you'll be very happy with it.
Of course, and also, guys, I will place some of your information within the chat as well. And once it's complete, we will put all the videos on Councilwoman Cindy Lynn's YouTube page, and you'll be able to view it in the descriptions as well. So,
Awesome.
again, thank you so much, FD. Looking forward to seeing
You
your
are very welcome.
product.
Yes.
And since we do not have any more questions, we're gonna go ahead and kick it on over to the next session. So,
Awesome.
ladies and gentlemen, we do have Sergeant. Hope I pronounced it right. Merricks.
Correct.
There we go. Sergeant Merricks with us today to go ahead and give us that kind of police officer perspective about the justice system and the law in general and just all those aspects. So what was yours, Sergeant?
Okay, how you guys doing today? Um, Again, my name is Sergeant Merricks, and thank you guys for inviting me to take part in this summer camp. I've been with the New Orleans Police Department for 23 years now. I joined in, I remember the date, June 1st, of course, 1996. But one of the reasons why I became a police officer, I had the unfortunate instance of going to jail, but it was for a minor traffic ticket. But the experience alone was something that altered my course. I wanted to go to school to be a cardiologist, and just that experience alone changed my mind and made me realize, hey, I can do something a little different and still save people lives at the same time. So I joined the police department. I've been here for 23 years. And the good part about it, I was actually in school. I changed my major as well and went back and got me a master's degree in criminal justice. And through that, I learned how the criminal justice system works. I guess by being a product of it, by going to jail. But we as police officers take on a lot of responsibility. Of course, the criminal justice system starts with us. There's three levels. Of course, there's the law enforcement side, then there's the courts, and then there's corrections. On our part, our main objective is to go out and enforce the law. One of the things we do, of course, being a law enforcement officer, you have to learn the laws associated with the city, with the state, and with the federal government. Being a city cop, our job is to mainly enforce city law, but also state law as well. Some of the things, of course, people know a lot of things have changed over the course of the years, especially with everything that's going on right now. Being a police officer has greatly impacted the way I look at life as well. One of the things I do is I teach community policing to the police officers as well as to the community. And I remind the police officers that I work with that being a police officer is not your life, it's your occupation. Your life is what you do when you're not in this uniform. And that being said, I remind them that we as police officers are to treat everyone that we encounter with the same respect that we want them to treat our relatives, our mothers, our daughters, and so forth. So we encourage our police officers to, when you interact with the public, you ought to look at them as if that is your relative, as if someone is interacting with your relative. And one of the good things about the New Orleans Police Department is we have a program called EPIC, which actually stands for Ethical Policing is Courageous. And just to give you the hindsight of what EPIC is, if I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of the incident that happened in Minneapolis with Mr. Floyd, and everyone asks the same question: why did those officers stand around and not do anything? Well, that's one thing about that we have. That's one thing that EPIC actually teaches us, and we're actually branching it out and bringing that program to police departments throughout the country. But one thing EPIC states is that it's kind of like what the Bible says: evil prevails when good people do nothing. And with EPIC, we are mandated to step in when we see another officer doing something wrong. Um, it applies to everyone, and it's not a program where um, you are in retaliated against. With EPIC, you don't have to fear retaliation. It's kind of like a moral responsibility. And we look at that as a big um, influence for the NOPD, because thank God we haven't had anything serious like that happen down here. But with the EPIC program, we have faith that it won't happen here, because again, we do not depend on the public to stop an officer from going rogue. It's our responsibility to stop that officer from going rogue. It's our first responsibility, actually. So with that program, uh, we at NOPD have been able to basically curve any type of police misconduct, and if there is any kind of police misconduct, we deal with it quickly. But we also encourage our citizens that if you see or witness any type of police misconduct, to report it to the appropriate authorities, that being the Public Integrity Bureau. And again, everyone knows we under the consent decree, so NOPD does not take anything lightly. And it's not just because of the consent decree, it's just that's the department we have become. We work for the public, and we also work with the public. So we want everyone to know that here at the New Orleans Police Department, we cannot do none of this alone. We do need the public on our side. We encourage our officers to go out, embrace the public. We have gotten away from that mentality of police in one neighborhood and protecting the other. Now we do both for every neighborhood in the city of New Orleans. I encourage my officers to go out and you're going to patrol New Orleans East just like you patrol Lakeview. You're going to step out of your cars. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to meet the public because if anything happens, we need that public to be on our side. So um, again, I love this job. I laugh about it because everyone asks me if I had the opportunity to retire, would I do it? Being that I had 23 years, and I constantly remind people I would actually do this job for free. That's how much I love it. Yes, it has its dangers, but at the same token, this is the badge that we swore up on. We swore to protect and serve, and that's primarily one of the jobs we do. So, with that being said, do anyone have any questions? Any further questions?
Yes, Sarge. Was wondering, from me, kind of wondering what's your, as you said, the job comes with its fair share of risk, fear at times. Are you, do you ever think about that when you make any kind of decision? Like, who is this going to impact? Is that all going through your mind with every decision you make when you're out there on the streets?
Um, yes. Um, you know, and again, this is my perspective. I took this job knowing that there's a possibility that I might lose my life. And I have accepted the fact that if that does happen, at least it would happen in a with actions of me taking to save someone else's life.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that I made my peace with God, and I accepted the fact that that's a possibility. Like most people know, when a shooting starts, most people run from the shooting. We run toward it,
Mhm.
and when we put this badge on, we swore to protect and serve, and that's part of the consequences that comes with it. So I have accepted that. I pray it doesn't happen, but if it does, I'm willing to live with it or die with it.
Thank you. And let's see, we have another. Yes, we do have a question for you, and it kind of throws back to situation going on in the world right now. And
Hmm.
the person was wondering, kind of, how are you feeling, with your position? Like, do you ever feel as though this is not the right thing that you should be doing, or that there's no way you can help to the extent in which you want to help?
Um, no. One of the things I don't have to worry about is the people are angry at um, abusive cops, road cops, police misconduct. I don't have that problem because I'm not one of those cops. So I'm angry at them as well. And again, when I teach officers in the academy, I constantly remind them that there are two sides to every story. And in this case, it's kind of twofold. The people don't like road cops. And as cops, we say, but I'm not. So stop punishing me for what another officer did. Well, we got to stop doing the same thing as police officers and stop punishing other people for the action that someone else did. So just like they look at us, we have to look at them the same way. And in order for all of this to go away, we as police officers have to change. And what I mean by that is, and again, that's the good thing we don't have at NOPD. Everybody feels like there is this thin blue line, but beyond that line, we have to hold other cops responsible for the actions that they go out and do. Do we have road cops on police department? Yes. I mean, there's plenty of them, but it's not the public job. It's not the public's job to go out and identify them. That's our job. So with everything that's going on right now with Mr. Floyd's death, hey, I support it 100% because yes, it shouldn't have happened. Again, we're taught to look at everyone as a human being, and everyone deserves due process. So it's not our job to go out there and be the executioner and so forth. Everyone deserves their day in court, and it's our job to make sure that they get it.
Thank you for that. And we were wondering, some questions about basically kind of if you could take us through your time kind of going through the academy, your road to getting where you're in the position that you're at now.
Um, like I said previously, um, after I got arrested and I went to jail for a traffic ticket,
Hmm.
and I sat in that jail cell for 2 days, and I got a chance to see what a person goes through, especially a person like myself. I was in college. I was on my way to go take a final exam in college, and I got arrested for not having driver's license insurance on me at the time. So I'm sitting in jail, and the experience alone was an alternate experience. And again, I wanted to be a cardiologist, and I felt like there was several people who do not deserve to be here. So my grandmother used to always tell me, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So when I got out of jail, I immediately went to City Hall, signed up to be a cop, and June 1st, 1996, I started. I'm sorry, 1997, I started the academy. Um, it was an experience that I wasn't prepared for it because again, my mind was focused on medical school, and here I'm in I'm in a police academy, doing something totally different. But I felt like I had a calling. So through the academy, I met new friends. Um, I created a bond with my academy mates and so forth. And then after that, once I graduated, I remember my first day putting that uniform on and going to work. Um, my FTO, which is my field training officers, I remember it like it was yesterday. Mr. Hal Amos, he told me, "Look, when you put this uniform on," and at the time we were working in the St. Bernard project, and he told me, "When you put this uniform on, they're not gonna know if you got 1 day on the job, I got 20 years on the job. All they're gonna do is see that uniform. So you have to be mindful when you step out of this vehicle. You have to protect me, you have to protect yourself, but you're also there to protect the public. So everything you do, all they're going to do is see that uniform. They're not going to see Officer Merricks. So with that being said, I was reminded of that, and afterwards, I felt like when people encounter the police, they should be able to see past the uniform. And in order for that to happen, the police have to show their true identity of who they are. And that's why I tell police officers that this is just an occupation. You have to take this uniform off and live your life the way you're supposed to, because we need to see the person behind the badge. So my missions right now on this police department is to basically the badge and get people to see the real side of the police and see the real police officer that's wearing that uniform. Because at the end of the day, and I explain this with cops all the time, you're gonna go home, you're gonna want to take your spouse out or your family, whoever it may be, and you're gonna want to go out and eat dinner. Just imagine the person that's serving your dinner is the person who you just manhandled 2 hours ago while you was working, and now it's catchback time. So I read it be the opposite, that the person who's serving my dinner remembered that I gave them a break, I respected them, and I treated them with dignity. And in that way, I don't have to worry about anything coming to me outside of this uniform. So that's one of the things we express to our officers all the time. You're going to treat people with dignity, because one day your turn may come.
And you don't ever wither away from your morals. Like there's no situation
No,
you think you got to break your morals.
never, never. I couldn't sleep at night. you know, I couldn't do it.
It's understandable. And so, uh, let's see. We do have one more question for you. Kind of your next steps, so to speak. Is there anything after being the sergeant? Is there anything that you're planning to accomplish later on?
Well, hopefully I get promoted soon. I am on the list to get promoted to lieutenant, so I'm just waiting on a phone call for that. But regardless, I enjoy it. I'm trying to do this as long as I can. Our retirement at 100% is at 30 years, well, 33 years if you count the time you have to do the drop and so forth. But like I said, I've been here for 23 years. I still got a lot in me. And my mission is, I know I can't change the world or change the entire police department, but I can be the spark to get it started. So, and a lot of police officers on the job knows me. Like I tell most people, we have officers that actually go out and really put their life on the line to catch those criminals that should be on the street. And I take my hats off to them. And I tell them all the time, been there, done that. So it's time for somebody else to do that. But how many cops are actually going out there and showing people the humanistic side of the police department? That should be all of us.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to change, to get most officers to understand that you don't have to go out there and put everyone in jail all of the time. I encounter people almost every day, and I am so proud to say that most of those encounters are people who say, thank you for not taking me to jail and see me as a human being, because my life has changed as a result. I wish they had more cops like you. And again, there are a lot of us out there like that, that do that. But and my job is to give them that recognition as well. So it's not just on me. It's a lot of us, but we're not getting that spotlight, because the minute a cop does something bad, the news media is shining a light on that. But I take my hats off to my superintendent. He is eager to change the perception of the New Orleans Police Department, and he gave me the baton and said, "Take it, run with it, do whatever you have to do. Let's change this perception and
Yeah.
make New Orleans and the city of New Orleans a great place to live, not just a great place to visit."
Right. Right.
Hmm?
You mentioned the media. Do you feel as though the media plays a pretty negative image of the police department and basically any law enforcement department in general?
Um, in some cases, because of course we all know negativity sells,
Right.
and again, I can't put it all on the media, because if the opportunity is given to them, they're going to run with it.
Hmm.
So we as law enforcement officers must police our own again, and not give the media that opportunity. Now, here at NOPD, we transparent. Of course, we want everyone to know what's going on with the police department. Anytime something bad happened, we want them to know that. But also, anytime something good happened, we want them to know that as well. Actually, I'm in the process of planning a graduation ceremony, recognition ceremony for the superintendent would like to do for those officers who didn't get a chance to walk across the stage because of the COVID pandemic.
Hmm.
So because of that, he's going to give them that opportunity. It may not be across the college stage, but we're going to create a for them to walk with their cap and gowns on and recognize them for their scholarly achievement. Because even though they didn't walk across the stage, they still got to put this uniform on, and we want to see them in that other uniform, which is a cap and gown, getting that recognition that they should have gotten. So we're going to put that out to the media, and hopefully that the media will be there, but that's the positivity we want to promote.
Yeah. Just great,
Hmm.
great, great to hear. And I did have one request, if possible. Wondering if you can recite the rights, just so people will know exactly what is said and it's registered with them, and that's the rights that should be said to them.
Okay. Now, again, we have a card that we read from, so I can't be verbatim, but I can actually cite them in layman terms. Of course, one being you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and do will be held against you. You have the right to an attorney. If you don't have an attorney present, one will be assigned to you. Now, again, so everyone can understand, whenever a person is being questioned and it's a possibility that they're going to say something that's going to incriminate them, we are obligated to read them their rights. And every officer has a card that they must read from. Sometimes we have it on an app on our phone that we must read from with the rights on it. And it's basically done, and it has to be, everyone has to have the exact same verbiage. So if one word is off, then that can be an issue. So we make sure every officer has the same verbiage. But one of the reasons why, and I know a lot of people, if you're on arrest, you haven't read him his rights. Well, if that person is given a statement, or if that person is being questioned, we are obligated to read them their rights, and it must be done via audio and video, so that everyone who else is watching can see that. So again, one of the first things we tell them is you have a right to remain silent. And we tell officers, when you read this to them, read it to them as if you just as if you're talking to them so they can clearly understand. Because if you're just reading it from the paper, it sounds like it's just protocol. And we want the person who you're reading this to clearly understand their rights so that if anything happens, they're under the understanding that everything that I said to this police officer can be held against me. So yes. Now, if they want me to read them verbatim, I can read them from this handbook we got. But yes, we have a handbook that we make sure every officer carries, and when they read their rights, they read them
Yeah.
correctly.
Wow.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for that, Sarge. And
Right.
doesn't look like we have any more questions for. Wait, hold on. We do have a question about the body cam that are
Okay.
mentioned. Are all officers, like, what are the rules and regulations on that, and are all officers required to wear these body cams?
Yes. Whenever you're interacting with the public, you must have a body cam on. That body cam must be activated. We do random checks on officers' body cam to make sure that they activated and that they activated at the right time as well. Our rule is, again, whenever you interact with the public, that body cam should be activated. One thing we want people to understand that the body cam protects not only the officer, but it also protects the public. Um, I have seen uh, videos from officer body cams. And unfortunately, we do have people that come in and make complaints. And a lot of times that body cam video exonerates that officer. So, but at the same token, we do have officers who may say one thing happened, but then we watch it on the body cam, it's totally different. So the body cam protects the officer, but it also protects the public from any type of police misconduct. And we do annual training. We do monthly and weekly training on the body cam to make sure that the officers understand the importance of turning those body cams on. I'm in big favor of the body cam. And again, it's not to curtail a police officer's daily function, but again, it's to protect that officer, to make sure that officer understands that, hey, we got that old saying, Big Brother is watching. But we want the officers to know that everything that's on that body cam, visually and verbally, is recorded. Now, our body cameras are designed to, the minute you cut it on, it takes a 10-second loop. So anything that happens 10 seconds before you cut it on is actually caught on video. Now, we may not have the audio, but it is caught on video. So we tell a lot of people, a lot of times when you interact with the police and they cut that on, just be mindful. 10 seconds will show up as well. So those things are important because it basically describes what happened before the officer may have gotten into this situation. So yes, everyone is required to wear one, and they have been a big positive impact on the New Orleans Police Department.
And does it vary depending on the parish, or is it the same in all parishes?
Well, no, it varies depending on the parish. Like Jeff's parish, they do not wear body cams, and with them, it has a lot to do with the budget, because it does take a lot of money to store the data for the body cams. And again, I can't speak on their issue, but NOPD felt like it was a necessity for us, being that with the police misconduct and everything else that was going on. Plus, we wanted to change the image and we wanted to be transparent. So we wanted the public to be able to trust us. And again, in order for that to happen, we must change ourselves. We must change our mode of thinking. And we embraced it when the opportunity came. Every officer was assigned one. And again, if you don't have your body camera on, there are severe penalties for it. If they find a video where you didn't cut it on or uh, you didn't cut it on in time, there are severe penalties for it. So we do our part to police our officers to make sure that they use them wisely.
Great,
Mhm.
great to know. Great to know. And so, as we are reaching the closing moments of your session, is there anything else that you would like to say to our viewers? Any last minute words? Anything?
Yes. Again, we are a new police department, and in my opinion, we are a better police department. I love my job. I love the people I work with. All the police officers, we take a lot of heat. Just being the police alone, we take a lot of heat. But I want everyone to know that we are human. And I one of the things I do teach my officers again is to pay it forward. A lot of times when we go into a restaurant to eat, someone is willing to pay for our food, or the restaurant might give us food for free. I tell my officers all the time, don't anticipate that gift. Um, but if it does happen, pay it forward to the person behind you or to someone else, because you was prepared to pay anyway. So pay it forward, because we need people to see the police in a different light, in a different highlight as well. And even if you see an officer on the street, hey, give that officer a hug. A lot of times you'd be surprised how just a simple hug can go a long way, because we deal with a lot of atrocities every day on the street. And sometimes we can't show it, but emotionally it can affect us. So sometimes a simple hug, a simple thank you, some sign of appreciation will go a long way. But we also tell our officers to do the same. One of the things I do before I go, I put it to because our kids are our most precious assets. So one of the things I do is I put a teddy bear in each police officer's vehicle, and I tell, of course we have cut back on it because of COVID right now, but I tell officers to stop. If you see a kid, stop and give that kid a teddy bear, just so that kid can see you in a more positive light instead of the police officer they see on TV. So, and that's been positive. The most important thing is we want to make sure our kids see us as being heroes and not zeros.
Thank you again so much. And before you go real quick, you did mention kind of the movie and television scene of things. Is there a, as you know, is there a kind of missed message or false information that gets translated in those rather than real life?
Yes. Oh, yes. There are very few positive movies about police action, and there are some out there. But a lot of times, especially in movies and videos today, when you see the police, is always we on the negative side of the screen. And I tell people that's life. That's art. That's studio art. So that is not how police officers operate. And again, just give us that opportunity to know us. And in order for that to happen, we have to communicate. We have to have some type of action. And I tell my officers, be the first, be the action, self-initiate, talk to people, because I understand the image that the police has in some communities, and we shouldn't wait for them to come to us. We should go to them. So, because if not, that image they see on the TV and the movies is going to be stuck in their heads.
Yeah.
So it's our job to change that. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again so much, Sarge, for your time, for your advice, for your wisdom. Really appreciate your story and everything that you told us today. I know that I'm personally gonna uh, take that into account and consideration when I'm doing certain things. And also, ladies and gentlemen, we have Judge Arthur Hunter with us. Um, if you can, Judge, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Z. Thanks, Z, man. I want to thank Sergeant Merricks for being a participant and accepting our invitation to serve on the summer virtual experience. One thing that Sergeant Merricks was saying, and he said this from the beginning, and he personifies this concept, is smart community policing. Because without that smart community policing, we cannot establish the public trust and confidence for people to have in the criminal justice system in order for the police department to investigate a case, make an arrest, and for the district attorney to prosecute. So it all starts with having that public trust and confidence in the community from the police department, and again emphasizing smart community policing.
Thank you again, Judge. And let's all thank the Sarge again for his time, for his wisdom, for everything that he provided us with today. And we are now going to go ahead and roll over to the next session with the lovely Victoria and her amazing, amazing animals. So, Victoria, are you there?
Hi, everyone. How are you today? Oh, I forgot I don't have any lights on. One moment. So I like to save energy during the summer by not turning any lights on in my home, even while I am here. So, hi everyone. It is nice to see you again. I see we have a couple of guests, Zach and Aisha. Great.
Yaisha, yeah.
Yaisha, so nice to meet you. So I am actually going to do a presentation on bugs in Louisiana. So give me 1 second. Zion, can you make me the host so I can share my screen?
Oh, I surely will. Let's see. How exactly do I do that?
So you should be able to click on the 3 dots on the right side of my picture and say make host.
Ah, got it.
Great. All right. So I'm going to start my presentation now. So I was going to go out and actually catch all of these bugs to show you, but I didn't want to hurt them. So I decided in lieu of doing that, I'll do a presentation and take some questions on it. So I did a quick presentation on 10 common bugs in Louisiana. So you can know when you're out in your garden or when you're walking around outside, you'll know and be able to identify some of the bugs that you're seeing. So, number 1, here we have the American giant millipede. So, a millipede, if you know what milli means, that means they have 1,000 legs. So that's not true. They actually don't have 1,000 legs. It's a common misconception. But look at how many legs they have. That's crazy, right? And so that's why they're called a millipede. When they're scared, they curl up in a little ball like this, like in the picture, and they'll also spit on you. So that's a fun fact about millipedes. And so they eat decomposing plant matter and soil. So I know growing up, I used to catch these all the time. My mother had flower pots outside, and when you move a flower pot, you'd see some worms, some beetles, some crickets, and some millipedes. And then they are completely harmless. They don't bite, but they do spit. So they're really good for the earth as they help decompose all the material. Like when all the leaves fall off the trees, they will help eat those up. So next we have an orb weaver. So I don't like spiders. I wasn't going to catch a spider for you to show you, but these are quote unquote good spiders. All right. So an orb weaver eats small insects such as flies, moths, beetles, wasps, and mosquitoes. You can see their nest is pretty small, or their web is pretty small. They keep it kind of right around their body. They're also very pretty colors. You can see the yellow on their back and the orange on their legs. They've also got a fuzzy little head, and their danger level is very low. So they do bite, but they are non-venomous. So they will not hurt humans if you get bit. They're also very common in the mornings. They come out in the morning and they build their pretty web. You can often find it like glistening with dew as the water sticks to the web very well. And you can also see in this picture the little hairs on their feet that help them walk around their web so they don't fall off. So they're considered very good spiders for a garden because they eat all these bugs that can hurt the garden. And it's always good when they eat mosquitoes because I don't like mosquitoes. So I'm very glad to have spiders that will eat them, especially spiders like this that come out first thing in the morning. They eat their fill and then they go and hide. That's my favorite kind of spider, the kind I don't have to see. So then we have a praying mantis. And you can actually see this picture is of it eating another bug. I think it's got a little grasshopper there. So praying mantis are also really good to have in your garden. Some people will even buy them. You can buy the eggs, hatch them out, and release them in your garden to keep all your fruits and vegetables safe, because they'll eat the little pests that will eat your food before you get to eat it. So they eat all those pest insects. They're also a very low danger level. They do have pinchers, and I wish that I could draw on here. 1 second. Let's see. I might be able to draw. So you can see right there, they've got their pinchers. That's what they use to eat. And it will hurt a little bit. I have been bit by a praying mantis. I will admit there are not many bugs I have not been bit by growing up on a farm. But they are, it's a little bit painful, but it's good when they're eating all those pest insects, so you get all your fresh food and everything like that. So, all right, I have to find my mouse because it's not, not coming up. One moment. I'm sorry, y'all. Having a little bit of trouble. There we go. Okay, I figured it out. So our next bug is a common pill bug. So I always called these roly-polies growing up, and that's because their fun fact is when they're threatened, they roll into a tight little tiny ball, and they'll stay that way until the threat is no longer there. So they also eat leaves and wood. They help with decomposition. You can also find these under flower pots, and they're very harmless, But if you look on the outside, you can see there's a really thick shell. And so when it curls up into a little, so when it curls up, those little sections will curl up into a circle like an armadillo. Need to figure out how to erase. There we go. Yeah, I'm learning. All right, so next we actually have a ladybug. So their name is a little misleading. They are not all ladies. And they're also known as lady beetles more than ladybugs. So they're also really good for the garden. They eat plant-harming insects like aphids. And you'll see their babies. Their babies are these little orange and black caterpillars that they'll be all over plants for about a week a year. Then they all go into larvae and they hatch out a ladybug. So they are also completely harmless. And their fun fact is they are not all red with black spots. That's more of the common ones that you see. But just like on the bottom of the screen there, there's an orange one. And they can also come in yellow. And different species have different numbers of spots too. Sometimes you can count the number of spots to figure out what type of ladybug it is. Next, we have bees. So do you guys know how important bees are? Bees are so good for our environment. So bees rely on flowers. They'll go out, they'll get into the middle of the flower. You'll see kind of the fuzzy hairs on its back. The pollen from the flower will stick to the bee's hair, and then it will carry it back. They actually use that nectar and pollen to make honey. That's what bees eat. So their fun fact is the honeybee is the only insect in the entire world that produces food eaten by man. So Yaisha and Zach, do you guys like honey?
Yes.
You do? Great.
Yes.
Awesome. So honey is so great. I like to put honey in my tea. You can also use it for baking and cooking and things like that. And so their danger level is medium. They sting. So you can't see it in this picture, but each bee has a tiny little stinger on its back. And so the sting itself is not that bad, but some people are really allergic to bee stings, and it can be incredibly dangerous. So you always want to make sure to give bees their space. You don't want to kill them, because then where would we get our honey from? But you do want to make sure to keep your distance. Let the bees have their space. Try not to step on them or run into them or anything like that. Bees are really, really important to our ecosystem. Next, we have cicadas. So I don't know if you guys have seen it, but very common in New Orleans. They'll have these little cicada shells all over. Let's see, So they'll have these shells hooked to trees and things like that. Cicadas really like pine trees. We have a lot of pine trees in Louisiana. We're actually in the Pine Belt, and cicadas love it. So if you ever go outside at night and just listen, you'll quiet down and you can hear all the bugs. So you'll hear crickets chirping. You'll hear frogs croaking. And then you'll hear cicadas kind of humming. So cicadas are really, really loud. And they're very common in New Orleans and in Louisiana. So as you can tell by the shell, they actually shed their entire shell one time when they're about to become adults. And when they do that, trying to X again. When they do that, then they're like full-grown adults, similar to ladybugs. So they eat tree roots. They actually don't eat at all after they shed their skin. So whenever a mama cicada lays its eggs in the ground, the larva hatches, they actually eat some of the juice from tree roots, and then they form their larva, and then they come out of the ground, they get up on a tree, and they hatch into the full-grown adult with wings, and they fly away. So they're also completely harmless. And like I said, cicadas sing. You can hear them almost every night in New Orleans. Sometimes it gets really, really loud. It's kind of like an alarm blaring. But they are harmless, and they're pretty good bugs. They're also really good food for a lot of other animals, like raccoons and armadillos and birds and things like that. They're full of nutrients, and some people even eat them. So our next bug is a dragonfly. So actually today I saw a lot of these in my yard. I had a bunch of them flying around. They're so pretty. You can see their wings right there are transparent. They've got 4 wings and a very long tail. That's how you can tell it's a dragonfly. They've also got 2 really big eyes on the front of their face. But the cool thing about that is, while they only have 2 eyes, they actually have lenses all over their eyes. So they see a bunch of different views at once, kind of from all angles. So they're very skittish because they can see so much. They see the grass moving and feel the wind blowing, and they'll hear you if you're walking up. And so they're very skittish, but they're also very pretty. They come in a variety of different colors. And they actually eat mosquitoes as well. So yay, we love dragonflies. We want as few mosquitoes as possible in Louisiana. And so they're also harmless. They do not bite. And they also get eaten as a snack. I don't know if y'all have ever been to the Insectarium downtown. Fun fact, you can actually get a day pass to the insectarium, aquarium, or zoo at the New Orleans Public Library. So you can take out a day pass for free at the library. Your library card is also free. You can get a family pass for you and your whole family to go to either the zoo, insectarium, aquarium, or out here in the east, we actually have the Audubon Nature Trail. And so you can come out there for free anytime. You don't even need a pass. Gotta get the mouse working again.
While you're doing that, we do have a question for you.
Yeah.
It is from Zach. He does ask, does the centipede, the first bug that you mentioned, the spit, does it affect you in any way?
So no, it's kind of like orange dye. It smells a little bit bad, and
Mhm.
it'll dye your finger orange or wherever you were touching it,
Yeah,
but it doesn't hurt you in any way.
good to know.
So yeah, there we go. All right. So our next bug, and I think our last bug, is the monarch butterfly. So I didn't see the chat. Oh, I do see Yaisha has also sent me a message. If you can eat a bug, how do you have to cook it so it does not harm you? So you can cook them in lots of different ways. That's why I was mentioning the Insectarium. If you go there, they actually have a bug cafe where you can eat all different kinds of bugs. So my favorite are the roasted grasshoppers. They're so good. They're a little bit spicy. They've got some chili on them, some chili powder, but they're kind of crunchy too. So you can cook them in a variety of ways. You can fry them. I'm sure some of them you can boil. Um, and yeah, I mean, I have never personally cooked a bug, but I do know that it can be done, and I have eaten bugs. So I would say definitely get someone to go to the public library and get that family pass, go to the insectarium and try them. They're really cool and they actually taste pretty awesome. You know, it's something you don't always get. Um, sorry, checking an email. As always with work. So our last bug is actually a butterfly. So these are some of the more common butterflies we have in Louisiana. They're the monarch butterfly, but they're also endangered. Okay, so butterflies eat milkweed. It's a special type of plant that this butterfly will lay their eggs. It's a bunch of little bitty tiny eggs. They'll lay them on the bottom of a leaf or on a flower or something. The eggs will hatch. You'll have caterpillars that will eat the milkweed or dill or fennel, a few different herbs. They will eat that. The caterpillars will start out really small, then they'll grow really fat. They'll create their cocoon. They'll go in there. Basically, the caterpillar kind of completely melts in its cocoon. Its body completely changes shape, and it comes out as a beautiful butterfly with 4 wings. So it looks like they have 2 wings, but actually, you can see they have 4, kind of 2 in the front and 2 in the back. They also have a long body like dragonflies, and monarch butterflies are known for being orange and black with white spots. They're completely harmless. They don't bite. What they do really well is they pollinate flowers. So, fun fact, 2 fun facts actually. So, butterflies taste with their feet. So, while this butterfly is standing on that flower, they're actually tasting the pollen on their feet. And another fun fact, more about the flower than anything else, is butterflies, bees, a lot of these different bugs, they are so important to growing flowers. So flowers have to be pollinated. You have to mix, you'll learn this in science growing up, but you have to mix the pollen of one flower with the pollen of another flower and vice versa. So you'll take the pollen from one, mix it to the other, take the pollen from this one, mix it to the other. And that's how flowers keep growing. That's how they reproduce. So these types of bugs are all so important to flowers, um, reproducing. I do see Zach has asked a question. Is it true that many animal species will be extinct because so many are endangered? And Zach, to be honest, I don't know. I'm not an ecologist, but I can say you're right. There are a lot of endangered species. It's really unfortunate due to deforestation, due to using insecticides and pesticides, and with larger animals over hunting and things like that. So some of these animals will become extinct. But I think there's also a lot of work that is being done to preserve them. Especially think of something like elephants. So elephants are endangered, but so many people care a lot about elephants. They love elephants. They love seeing them at the zoo. They like the idea of elephants roaming the African savanna and being free. And I think when more people know about endangered species and kind of have value for them and more people start to care, that's when we can keep them from going extinct. So in Louisiana, we actually have quite a lot of endangered animals. Even alligators were endangered for a really long time. And I mean, alligators are all over Louisiana now, but they were endangered at one time. And we were able to get more people to care about conserving them, put a lot of money into conservation efforts, which Audubon did a lot of work for. And then now alligators aren't endangered anymore. So I think that if we put in the work, if we make ourselves aware, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this presentation on bugs, something that people don't necessarily know a lot about or care a lot about, then I think, once we start caring, we can be more conscious of that and make sure not to go kill those orb weavers just because they're a spider, but to know that they're doing good, and they're doing good for us as humans by eating mosquitoes and other bugs that could hurt us, and they're doing good for our garden by preventing other bugs that might hurt the garden. Do we have any other questions?
Well, yes, Zach did have a follow-up question asking, basically, you did mention basically how Audubon Zoo is doing its fair share of things for them. Is that a good place for animals and animals endangered as well?
So I think a lot of people have different feelings about something like this. Zoos have come under some scrutiny for keeping animals in cages. That's something where it's illegal to keep a dog in a cage all the time. So why is it legal to keep a lion in the cage all the time? I cannot speak to that precisely, but I can say that knowing Audubon, knowing that they are in our community, that we have a lot of watchdogs and a lot of people that care very much about the animals that are there, Audubon spends a lot of money making sure that their animals are happy, making sure that their animals get enrichment. So if you follow them on Facebook, you'll be able to see, I know in the past couple of weeks, they've been giving the elephants watermelons to play with and eat, and they do a watermelon stomp. And all those things are meant to bring the animals enjoyment. It brings people enjoyment too, but it's primarily meant for the animal, for their enrichment, to keep their minds working, all of that. So I think that Audubon does a really good job of that. They also participate in some programs that span kind of nationwide with a bunch of different zoos, as far as making sure that any animal that can be rehabilitated and released is. They also do a lot of bird rehabilitation. So yeah, I think Audubon is doing a really good job in saving endangered species and keeping them from extinction.
Well, thank you so much, Victoria, for your wisdom and your time.
No problem. So guys, I actually do have to get off a couple of minutes early. I have another call right at 3 o'clock, but let me know if you have any more questions, and I will see you next week.
Thank you so much. Actually, you all, I have to go as well. Have another obligation to tend to. So what we're going to do is go ahead and wrap up our virtual summer experience early this week, just like a few minutes early. But thank you all again for tuning in to this week's District E Virtual Summer Experience. So thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to view everyone else that has taken the time to put their craft, talents, hobbies, hard work into showing you guys, giving you guys maybe a new interest, maybe a new aspect or something you want to explore, just giving you that opportunity to just invest in it a bit. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's virtual summer experience, and we will be back next week again for our last week. This is our last week, guys. So we're going to have so much planned for you all. It's going to be truly incredible, truly tremendous. Please, guys, tune in next week. And thank you so much for being a part of our District E virtual summer experience. You guys have a blessed rest of the week.